Hello and welcome. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for tuning in today. It means a lot to me that people reach out to me. I did recently share a graphic novel on my Instagram of a paradise lost, but it was the video was deleted. So not sure what happened there, but I have left it up on my YouTube channel, so I will leave it here. I will be continuing part 3 and potentially moving on to looking at a part 4 of the how to or making a pact or any level of dealing with a demon. But today I just felt really compelled to jump on and do a video or a podcast here. There is no scripts really here. There is no notes. This is just coming out of my head. It's something that I have been meaning to talk about for quite a while. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and explain this to you. If you are new to my channel, before I start, please consider subscribing. It shows value to what I do. And like you know, I am a man with a mind. So yes, free thinking is very much appreciated in my life and on this channel. So your engagement and participation with me is also much appreciated because I need some information too. I'm trying to grow as well. I'm committed. All right. So the title of today's topic is an NPC. So I wanted to do it, and here we are. An NPC is a non-player character, a non-playing character. And this is something that is really, really now trending in the world. We're seeing it more and more, obviously, as we're heading into such a fragmented society. And of course, but what is a society? It's just people. And so we're now seeing that this term is coming up a lot. We're seeing terms like the Matrix coming up a lot. Bubble matrix coming up a lot, or hijack coming up a lot. There's a lot of these kind of new terms that have been coming out, and they're quite fascinating. And that's why I felt, noticing this and being on my path, I wanted to lean in and share my thoughts on it. Because when you start to get connected to your higher self, you start to see other people as they really are. So you don't see people how you may have used to have seen them. You start to really see people as they actually really are on their path, or in this case, a lack of path. And this is one of the things that happens. If you're listening to this video, then you probably you're probably not an NPC, because an NPC wouldn't be interested in the stuff, that is on my channel. So awakening is key, but awakening to your higher self means that you have to take a level of accountability and notice of yourself and your thought patterns and what you're doing. As we know, spirituality is mastery of self. And so most people out there in the world are non-playing characters. They are, like in a video game, they're in the background. Most of the human population, seriously, at this point. I'm going to explain how it's not all their fault, but I'm going to explain what I really feel on it. So if you don't know, we'll go into some of the signs that could help you, see who is an NPC, and the types of groups, or where they go, what they do, how they behave, the type of frequency that we have. This is everywhere, guys. At this point, it's absolutely everywhere. It was just the other day, I was sitting with a woman in a room, and I looked into her eyes, and I really limit a lot of my time with people anyway these days. But to just see the level of soullessness, the level of blankness, the level of disconnection from her own self was really quite scary. And sometimes when you come face to face with an NPC, it can really disturb you a lot, actually, because it's so obvious that this person really has a real shallowness to them. So that's one of the first number one signs that I'll say of noticing an NPC is their shallowness. There's no depth. Okay, they don't really want to get to know you. The conversation that you have with them or the conversations that they have with other people are very dull. They're very kind of mundane. A lot of NPC conversations are really like very light and fluffy. The weather, hi, how are you? How was work? How's your job? The things that they mostly talk about will be sports, the Olympics, entertainment, always entertainment. NPCs are all about entertainment and what's trending in the world. Okay. So it's kind of like a following of what is commercialized or just a following of what's trending. So a lot of it is really just this inability for them to have any level of depth on any level. Like it's just like a mindless person. And when you're around them, and I have noticed this with a lot of them, you come in quite close to their energetic field. And I've noticed this actually with a lot of wokies and a lot of gay men as well. The conditioning that's happened on their consciousness has completely disarmed them from any level of individualism at all. So it's kind of almost like their energy getting a little bit meta. It's a little bit like a matrix system, like a frequency code. It's not actually even, it's like the more that they detach themselves from objective thinking, or they don't develop any objective thinking, they kind of are more plugged into like a simulation of what society wants them to be in their attributes, rather than them actually be able to form a real internal dialogue in their head. So a lot of NPCs, just putting it really blankly back to the gay men, a lot of them can't think outside of the box. They don't want to have deep conversations about anything that's actually really serious or interesting or real. And when I say interesting, I mean like the real stuff. Because to me, when I meet someone, can they go deep? I dip my toe in the water with them, see how shallow they are. Can they sustain, because at some point in someone's life, if you're in your mid-20s or in your 30s, you have to have acquired a level of knowledge and accrued a level of knowledge from experiences in your life. So it's really interesting when you meet people that are in these later years that are just kind of like, just blank. Like there's just no thought process. A lot of them try to style themselves as what's always trending or what's conventionally pretty a lot of the time. So they appear to look pleasant, or they appear to look like they're fitting in. That when humans get in groups, they go into hive mind. We know that. So they'll talk about like celebrities, sport, just shit like that. They won't really want to go into politics on any real level. It's all surface level. So every day is kind of the same. Every week is kind of the same. And it's kind of like this constant life that just goes around in a circle. Like an NPC is really a human that's just kind of on a wheel. Every day is the same. You wake up, you go to work, you drive home from work, and then you watch a little bit of TV, and then you might go on your phone, and then you might take a shower, and then it's like, I might go to the fridge now, and then you get something to eat, and then you get into bed, and then you go to sleep, and then it all starts all over again. Okay? NPC all the fucking way. Nothing extraordinary, nothing of any level of kind of sticking their head above anything. They won't have an opinion on anything. They like to be seen to fit in and comply, basically. Their whole life is basically compliance on a lot of level. And it's really just like that's their life. It just revolves around in a circle, and the next day starts again. And they've got a real repetitiveness to them. So when you're around people, notice that you'll see that they are on this kind of loop. If you ask them a question, they'll have kind of like a staged or rehearsed answer that they'll give you, kind of like a knee-jerk reaction type of thing. Anything that veers off the script, anytime you try to talk about anything that's deep, they usually can't even grasp what you're talking about. They look at you blankly. They look at you, and also one of the keys that I've noticed with them and their routine thinking is that they have no spontaneity at all. So you'll see a lot of them are like, they go to work and they look forward to like Friday, like the weekend, like Saturday's their special day. That's kind of the thing. They're just living for the weekends. It's just everything is mundane. It's all about Groundhog Day. The film with Bill Murray, it's actually a really disturbing film in a lot of ways. I've always found that film quite interesting, but because it's so true. It's quite interesting. And we know that The Matrix was a take on Plato's allegory. If you don't know what that is, I have mentioned that in previous videos. You can look it up yourself. It's about having eyes and being awakened, and people not seeing that you're awake or don't want to acknowledge that you're awake because some of these NPCs might have a level of consciousness where they might be able to sense that something isn't quite right in the world. But if they go down that road, or if they kind of peek and open their eyes a little bit, it could kind of disrupt their norm, and it could kind of trigger and shake up and kind of dismantle their reality bubble, their little matrix bubble that they've created for themselves. So they tend to, when they hear something that doesn't really fit the agenda of their programming, they get really triggered and they get really reactive a lot of the time. They can't handle like anything that isn't part of what they've already been told. And they don't usually seek out new information. A lot of them are very lazy. And so there is a real gap, as I was mentioning with this woman the other day, sitting there, there was no presence of spirit. I have also been to China. Back in 2018, I went to China to do some printing, and it was really shocking to see. To me, I felt, just personally mentioning here is that going to China and coming home, I actually was spiritually sick for about a week because I was exposed to fundamentally kind of like humanoids, these little Asian Chinese people. There's no presence of soul or individualism. Everyone is basically like a property of the government, and they don't know how to think. They don't know how to connect to themselves. Okay, they just react and just go through the motions of their life, and then they kind of grow old and die. And that's really what we see a lot of the NPCs doing. They don't think outside of the box. They're not leaders. Okay, I know this might be triggering to hear this, but I'm just going to say this quite honestly and very frankly here. So please take this into understanding. I'm only mentioning this because it's so obvious. And that's my point. It's so obvious. But a lot of them, when something is actually kind of wrong or doesn't make any sense, even if it's the government telling them that, or even if it's their own kind of culture, they've never actually questioned it to begin with. So just for example, with a lot of gay men being NPCs, they kind of look the same. They wear little man bags, little strap bags across their shoulders. They put on a little fruity voice. They kind of play up the gayness. They play up the character. This is because it's like an avatar that they're hiding behind that they can kind of slip into. So it's like if everyone else is behaving like a queen, I can be this queen character, then I can have a place at the table too and fit in. And we know that humans are tribally programmed, and we need a group, we need a tribe. So that's their way of doing it. But the problem is when you hand over your own free thinking and your own individualism, you basically sign your soul away, you sign your life away. Because now everything is kind of coming under the guise of you playing the avatar of the character. Back to the character game that I was mentioning, it's like a background character that isn't a main character. And so, yeah, it's you hand over your individualism. So something that could be really obvious to anyone, and then you mention it to them, they usually run away, or they get very uncomfortable when you mention it to them. For example, say if you told a gay man that you don't have a vagina in your asshole, that's actually a waste area of the body, that's not actually designed for stretching of that body part, and that's really kind of dangerous to your own health on many levels. They wouldn't understand that. They would look at you blankly, and it's like, they've never questioned that. Everyone else was doing it. That's how you do it. So I do it too. And it's so obvious, even if they're at their own detriment, even if it doesn't make any logical sense, it's also associated with cognitive dissonance. So it's when a group of people start to make an object become a different object for the function of what they want it to be, even if it's not in the nature of what that object or thing is. If everyone believes that it is, then so it is. This is actually very dangerous as well. I've mentioned before, when we play around with reality, because you can't prolong something that isn't real. So a lot of their connections are very short-lived anyway, because they can't last because it's not real. Okay, so I know that sounds hard to hear, but it's something that's just so obvious, but that's what an NPC wouldn't see. They just want to fit in like every other person. They're all the same. They don't really have an opinion. Their opinion isn't researched. Their opinion is always of the mainstream. So what books or, what movies, not really books these days. I mean, who reads? But I mean, so what the radio tells them, who they should, what's the hot artist to listen to, how do I fall in line? Again, there's no uniqueness to them. Or they'll take a characterization of something else, like a character, and then they'll play that character, because when they do that, it basically forfeits them, or it's easy to piggyback off an identity that someone else has created for them to follow, that's influenced them, rather than them actually have to do the self-development and the real inner work. And NPCs don't do inner work. Like I mentioned before, and I'm not having a go at gay people, gay men in general, but a lot of them, I mean, how many of them are leaders? How many of them are really into self-development? I mean, come on. So I'm just mentioning this as a part of a group example of an NPC. And so that's really how they are. They also don't like spending much time on their own. So yet again, fitting in, they have to fit in. They cannot be alone. Being alone would terrify them. They must always be distracted with stimuli. So we know that when someone doesn't have purpose or have any direction, or have any kind of higher power above them, they just kind of live in a hedonistic pattern of pleasure seeking, looking for the next power, looking for the next kind of power socket to plug in. They might get a person that they date for a little while, and then that gives them a high, and then that wears off, and then they go, no, break up, move on, go to the next thing, and then they go to the next thing, get a new job for a little while, they do this for a bit, then they go somewhere else. Or the NPC might just lock into one archetype or one job, and they just kind of follow that as much as they can, even if they've outgrown it, they're not really growing, but even if it's not really suiting them, they play safe. Okay, so there's no negotiation of higher thinking on any level within themselves. Their thought process is very drone-like. So it's like taking away someone's dirty plates, taking them back to the sink, taking away someone's dirty plates, taking them back to the sinks. Never thinking about, rather than working for themselves, it's always about working under the hive mind of daddy government or daddy grubberment or something like that. There's always someone kind of telling them what to do, and then they have to fall in line and follow. And that's what they do. They don't question anything. Nothing's questioned. Even if it's insane, they don't question it. Okay, so that's also what it is. A lot of them are very kind of emotionless. So they might have kind of like a consumeristic mentality with people. So just like I said, just pleasure seeking all the time. They can't really build those, make those deep connections to show other people who they really are, so other people can really get to know them. It's always just a surface level type engagement all the time. And we know people like this. I know tons of people like this. And also when you start to come in and you start to level up and you start to work in your heart and you start having empathy and you start questioning systems and you questioning logic, and you'll notice straight away that you'll see this instant tension in them. They do not like that. Okay, they cannot handle anything that doesn't check into the system. All right, it's all about the matrix's higher system. They are running on a simulation. All right, a really good example of this would be when you're playing like Final Fantasy or you're playing a video game. That's where this meme kind of generated from and got a lot of traction. I know Twitter has been trying to take away the NPC memes because they find it's dehumanizing to people when when the NPC meme is actually about people being dehumanized. I find that quite ironic. So it's like you go into a store in a video game and you have to pick up an object, or you've got to buy a sword, or you've got to buy a Pokemon ball, or you've got to buy something. You'll see a lot of these characters, they stand still. They're just blank. They're looking around. They don't know what's going on. Their programming is only designed to go, "Hello, Michael. My name is John. What is your name? Oh, hello. I can do this." It's like that. So they only function for the functionality of the system that they're in. So they serve that very specific kind of purpose, and that's as far as their brain capacity or they're willing to think will go. So it doesn't matter what time of the day you come into the shop in the video game. It doesn't matter what time of night. You'll always get the same fucking response from them every single time. Okay, there's no variation off the path. It's just always connected to this kind of paradigm of old thinking, not even old thinking, because I think a lot of the new earth, new wokey stuff is also just ego as well. But they just don't question reality. They don't want to talk about what happens when you die. They don't want to talk about God. They don't want to talk about reality. They don't want to question anything. Here's some drugs, take these medications. Okay, I'll be a little guinea pig. What's the studies on these medications? What's the long-term health effects of taking these medications? They wouldn't even think about that. They wouldn't question it. The doctor gave it to them, so therefore it means it's good for me. So they're more than happy to kind of rush out and get vaccinated or have some level of guinea pig drug trial. They just don't have a deeper value of themselves in a way, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, like when you start to ascend, you see all these kind of agents of like Agent Smith, like it's it's like the Matrix. Yeah, it's just very lazy, and it's just, this is what an NPC is. A lot of them will play video games themselves. This is also a way for them to, because they can't really go out into the world and actually build relationships and deal with bad people and managers and level up and boss the fuck up in their own life. So they kind of enjoy entertainment-based things in a safe simulation environment that makes them feel safe and it calms them down, because they can't control their own emotions. Like I mentioned, they get very reactive to any level of stimuli that doesn't suit the narrative of the hive mind. The little bee it's like a bee in a hive in a way, working for the queen. A lot of them don't even know they're doing it, but they are. So yeah, it's all about kind of the weekend. There's Saturday, that's it. Getting to Saturday, and then they get to do nothing. And I kind of, as a triple Sagittarius placement, I've always been very rebellious and free thinking anyway, and seeking wisdom and knowledge beyond as much as I can get. I'm always interested in expansion. But when we see all of these background characters everywhere, it really is very, very sad. And it's kind of, they create their own matrix bubble that they live in, and they just will not get out of this psychologically. They don't know how, and it comes from school as well. In school, we're kind of, you're programmed basically, say what the teacher said, and if you said what the teacher said, then you'll pass. There's no application part of that either. You know what I mean? Like they're not artists, they're not creatives. They can only copy other people's art if they were to make art. So it's really kind of what it is. And it's very, very sad that it's kind of gone this way. But this is the way the world is now headed as we've kind of become more dependent on technology, more fragmented from ourselves, more fragmented from just our own divinity. We kind of move in from this main player character where you can take control of your life. You can, and you have to understand the impact you have on other people. This type of thinking takes courage, and it takes a work ethic and due diligence. NPCs are not interested in that. They are mechanical as fuck. All right. So I've made this really clear. This is my very strong thoughts on them. And I know, I know you know them because they're fucking everywhere. Go down the street. All right. And some of them are even that fucked in the head that even think that they are actually connected, but they're not connected. All right. So, and a lot of the NPCs have an entitlement about like society as well. Like they're supposed to be taken care of in exchange for their obedience as well, which is kind of back to that kind of hive mindset mentality or just China in general. So I know this might have been a little bit confronting for some people, but I want you to really think about what I've just said here and some of the key points that I've really hit on the head, all right? Because that's why I'm doing these videos, because we're debunking it, we're demystifying it, and I'm exposing this shit, all right? So lots of love to you, and I hope that you're well. If you know any NPCs, probably can anyone wake up from being an NPC? Yes, of course. Sovereignty and sole purpose is every being's right, but you have to recognize things that are wrong before you can actually do anything about it anyway. And so it brings me back to the Morpheus thing in the Matrix when Morpheus says to Neo that at a certain age, we don't offer people the red pill. We can't because they're too hopelessly dependent on it and they've gone too far down the Matrix road of their simulation in the Matrix itself to ever wake up from that. Waking someone up can be very traumatic. So I hope that made sense. So I'm sending you lots of love. Please leave your comments below and I will continue my series. This was my video on NP fucking Cs. I will see you in the next podcast. I hope you're having a really, really good week. Okay. All right. Bye.